Green Bay Packers, Minnesota Vikings, New York Jets quarterback, Brett Favre. He is on the line with us now and joining us for a special reason because he is a part of our Hunter's Hope auction that we're having this year. We used to have the Radiothon, and now we're having this auction, and he is part of a pretty special package. But first and foremost, we'll get to that in a little bit, but first and foremost, Brett, hello, welcome, and thank you for taking the time.
Oh, no problem. My pleasure.
Well, I guess the topic I wanted to start off with is, what have you been doing in the retirement days? I mean, haven't heard a ton from you since you hung him up, and what's your day-to-day like nowadays?
Well, the family, we just got back from Disney last night, so that gives you an idea. We've been doing a little traveling. School just let out. Our 13-year-old just finished the 8th grade and coaching a little high school football. Had a blast doing that last year here at our local high school. Probably will do it again. We probably will go on another trip or two this summer. Not sure. We're thinking about trying to go to Glacier. So kind of doing things, that I never even thought about doing prior to retiring.
Yeah, it's probably, obviously a lot more time to do it. But you brought up something that I wanted to ask you about. I mean, the coaching part of it, you said you're doing something with the high school. I mean,
Right.
Is there ever any anticipation on your part of maybe wanting to go through the ranks a little bit and maybe, transition into the NFL or college or something like that?
Much like playing, I always had, I guess the best way to put it, if I had not played, I would have been coaching and probably would have never had a chance to coach it at the higher levels for obvious reasons. Now that, I've had a chance to play in the NFL and you have a lot of contacts and things like that, it would be much easier. But also, I realize the time that goes into it. I think some of it is ridiculous, really, the amount of time that is spent. I saw that these coaches put in, I would love to, but no, I don't want to put in the time. And obviously, as you move up, the stress level goes up as well. And I found with the high school coaching, there's some pros and cons like there would be with any level, much like playing. It was as close to playing as you possibly could get without any of the stress that came with pro football. And, the downside was you really can't expand much with your ideas and thoughts. And a lot of my experience is just that experience. It doesn't really carry over a lot to high school football. I mean, you really have to get to the simplest of teaching and knowledge base with these kids. Now, that's not to say I don't try to give them tips and things of that nature. I think that's maybe the benefit of me coaching. But you can't go in there with all these great ideas. You realize that right and left is about as complicated as you can get.
Brett Favre here with us on WGR Sports Radio 550. Brett, since you have been retired for a few years now, there's been some speculation that maybe the folks in Green Bay might be willing to come to you and potentially want to retire your number. I know Aaron Rodgers has said they think that you should have your number retired there in Green Bay. Have they approached you with that at all, or is that something you would want to see happen for all the time you spent there?
I mean, I don't know of any player who would not want that.
Well, sure, right.
I'm honored just by the thought, obviously there was, if you want to call it bad blood, whatever, I just think that people started picking sides. And I'm over that, and I have been over it. Mark Murphy and I have talked on numerous occasions. I never expected them to do anything. I'm not one of those to sit here and say, I think they need to do this, do that. They have a very good ball team, and that's their primary focus, and should have always been, which it has. And as time does, it heals a lot of things. And I know, like for me, as I've gotten further and further removed from the game, I think about for example, statistics and things of that nature, which I don't know of any player where that didn't matter some. Matters a whole lot less now. And so the things that transpired that led to our, breaking up, if you will, to me are over and done with. And so when will that happen? I don't think either side is trying to push the issue. I think Mark Murphy and Mark came in really at the end of really the last few weeks of my career in Green Bay. So he kind of came into a hornet's nest, if you will. But he's been extremely great in trying to make this work. And in our discussions, it will happen. We just don't want to. All right, we're going to do it here, and because I think both sides are genuine. I know they are, and that's the way it has to come across, because that's the way it should be. We don't want to go out there and have our, waving to the crowd with our backs to each other, and I don't think that's going to happen. Aaron has said some very nice things, and he and I have a good relationship. I had a chance to present an award with him at Super Bowl, and that was for real. It wasn't for show. And so, I think everything will be fine.
I guess piggybacking off of that point, and maybe the perceived bad blood, do you have any regrets about how it all went down? Maybe going to the Vikings, going to the Jets, and the way
it is. I mean, I'm always one of those that people say, well, what if? Well, it is what it is. It's over and done with. I was at fault. I feel like both sides had a part in it. And, if you could go back, would they have done things differently? I'm sure both sides would have. But you can't. And I don't know for certain, but I think, the situation with Peyton and the Colts almost looked like our situation, but then, maybe they thought twice about it. Maybe they learned from our situation, and they handled it correctly. So, I hate it that it happened that way. And I tried to go on and play my best football in spite of those things. And I had a great year, my first year in Minnesota. And up until my bicep was torn in New York, I really felt like we were having a great year. So, I look back and have fond memories of all those years. In 20 years of football, I don't hold any regrets. I know I gave it my all, had 16 great, wonderful years in Green Bay, had a lot of success, played with a lot of great teammates, was a part of teams with some wonderful coaches who have all branched out, and McCarthy being one of those. So, again, it happened. It's over and done with. I think things will be fine in due time.
Brett Favre here with us on WGR Sports Radio 550. Now, back in the day, before all of this transpired, Brett, you were a guy sitting in your house with your jean shorts, surrounded by your family, waiting to get drafted, and finally seeing that you got drafted by the Falcons. Now, the Bills had a young quarterback. They drafted a young quarterback this year, first round, E.J. Manuel out of Florida State. I'm not going to ask you about him as a player, just maybe about the mindset of a young player coming into the NFL, especially, you didn't really get too much of a chance in Atlanta, but once you got to Green Bay, I mean, that's a really rabid environment for football, and Buffalo is much the same.
Yeah.
How do you approach that as a young player, especially in trying to, I guess, win over the fan base?
Well, to me, I think, and again, it's just what served me well. I'm never one to give advice of this is what you should do, because I think, first of all, the players today are a lot different talent-wise and offer a dimension that a lot of us, when we came out, did not offer. I moved around well, but not to the extent that a lot of these guys, nor the size that these guys have. I think what EJ will face is much like the guys in Miami and and some of these other places that had quarterbacks who were very successful for a long time will face, and it's always tough to follow in those footsteps. In Buffalo, the list goes on and on. Jim had a wonderful career, almost too good. People expect that every time, and it's just hard to do. But I think you have to be humble. I think you have to be confident, but I think you have, in my opinion, kind of a cautious, confidence. You're there because they feel like you can play, but until you put in the time and you start proving yourself, the jury's still out. Don't go in there thinking that, you're the greatest thing. Those days are over with. What you did in college is over with. And I think too many times guys get caught up in that, and before they know it, they're gone. I think you have to have a tremendous amount of respect, not only for the game, but for the guys who played before you. Because the older guys will see right through you. And it won't take long before you alienate yourself from the team. So that's what I would say. I'm not going to say anything about the way a kid plays, because we know a kid is drafted because he can play. And so it's really the intangibles, I think, that are so important that you have to be very aware of.
Now, Brett, I know you're short on time, but before we let you go, listeners have a tremendous opportunity, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, really. As part of our Hunter's Hope auction, you can go to WGR550.com, and for the awareness of Krabbe, leukodystrophies, and newborn screening, you can bid on certain items and experiences, and one of those is to go on a hunting trip with both you and Jim Kelly. Can you tell us a little bit about what's going to happen there?
Well, you kind of summed it up in a nutshell. Jim had asked me about a month ago if I would be willing to be a part of that, and I think the world of Jim and obviously his cause. And I told him, yeah, and that's you talk about what are you doing in retirement. I love to hunt. I'm enjoying coaching, and this allows me, the retirement allows me to do certain things. And I've always been quick to help Jim with his call. So, and it'll be fun.
Well, Brett, thank you so much for your time, and enjoy retirement, enjoy hunting, enjoy coaching, everything